Stop forgiving this. That's the beginning of your pain, because some things you shouldn't forgive, not in others, and especially not in yourself. There's a moral line you should never cross, and Einstein knew exactly where it was. In this video, I'll show you how that line still applies to your life today, and why crossing it might be the reason you feel lost, tired, or invisible. You've been bending, shrinking, saying it's fine when it's not. But deep down, you know, you've betrayed yourself too many times in the name of peace. It's time to stop. So if this already feels like something you've been needing to hear, not just for your mind, but for your soul, then pause everything and hit subscribe right now, because this isn't just another video. It's the moment you draw your line and come back to who you really are. You've been told to forgive everything, that time heals, that people change. But what if there are certain things you shouldn't forgive? Ever. What if some lines, once crossed, leave a wound not just in your heart but in your soul? Albert Einstein once said many things could be understood, explained, even excused. But there was one mistake, one betrayal, that he never tolerated, not in others, not in himself. And here's the strange part. You might be committing this exact betrayal right now, not to someone else, but to yourself. I know, that sounds heavy, but stay with me, because once you see what this is, you may never live the same way again. Let me ask you, have you ever felt that quiet ache at the end of the day? That sense you've bent too far, stayed too quiet, agreed too quickly, until you can barely recognize the person you were trying to protect? You smile, you nod, you play nice, and somewhere deep inside your spirit whispers, "This isn't me." But you keep going, because keeping the peace is easier than standing in your truth, right? That's the moment Einstein warned us about. The moment we betray our own conscience, not for evil, not for greed, but for silence, for comfort, for belonging, and that's what this video is about. We often think of Einstein as the man with wild hair and impossible equations, the genius who cracked the secrets of the universe. But what most people don't know is that Einstein wasn't just obsessed with the cosmos. He was obsessed with conscience. To him, intelligence wasn't just about the mind. It was about moral clarity, about knowing where you stand, especially when the world tells you to stand somewhere else. There's a quote of his that few talk about, and yet it might be the most urgent today. Never do anything against conscience, even if the state demands it. Let that sink in. This wasn't a man living in theory. Einstein lived through war, through exile, through witnessing what happens when ordinary people close their eyes to what they know is wrong, because it's easier, or safer, or more comfortable. He watched a society lose its soul in slow, silent increments. And what terrified him most wasn't the loud cruelty. It was the quiet compliance. He knew the real danger isn't in the villain. It's in the neighbor who stays silent, the friend who shrugs, the version of you that keeps saying yes when everything in you screams no. To Einstein, the most dangerous thing a human being could do wasn't to fail a test. It was to fail themselves, to abandon their own truth, little by little, until nothing of it remains. He believed that when we cross the line of our own conscience, we fracture something deeper than thought. We fracture our very sense of self, and the world doesn't have to punish us, because we do it ourselves, every single day, in silence. That was his real theory. Conscience is the compass of the universe, and the moment you betray it, you're lost. No matter how right everything looks from the outside. Let's bring this down to earth. You wake up, check your phone. The noise begins immediately. Emails, messages, notifications, responsibilities. You pour your coffee, maybe. Skip breakfast, maybe forget to breathe. You put on a face you don't fully recognize anymore and step into a world that demands everything from you, except the truth. And day after day, without even noticing, you agree to things you don't believe in. You say yes when you want to say no. You let things slide, unfair words, tiny injustices, moments that hurt, because you're too tired to confront them, or too afraid of what will happen if you do. And it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just letting your boundaries dissolve one compromise at a time. You stay in the job that kills your soul. You remain quiet in conversations that crush your values. You smile through relationships that are slowly eroding your spirit. And deep down, something in you whispers, "This isn't who I am." But that whisper is soft, and the world is loud, and so you keep moving. This is the betrayal Einstein warned us about. Not the betrayals that make headlines, but the ones we commit in silence. The betrayals of our inner compass. That sacred part of us that knows what's right, what's real, and what can't be negotiated. He saw what happens when people stop listening to that voice. He saw it in regimes that demanded obedience, in institutions that asked scientists to trade their integrity for fame, in societies that praised intellect but starved the soul. And more than anything, he feared what we would become when we started. To believe that being accepted was more important than being honest. But here's the hardest part. In today's world, betraying yourself doesn't just go unnoticed, it gets rewarded. You're praised for being flexible, for being easy to work with, for being nice. You get applause for keeping the peace, even when that peace is built on your own silence. You're called mature when you swallow your pain. You're called professional when you pretend things don't bother you. But Einstein knew, there is no peace if it costs your integrity. There is no maturity in self-erasure. There is no success worth chasing if you lose your conscience along the way. So ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you abandoned yourself just to keep things running smoothly? Was it when you didn't speak up in that meeting because your idea felt too much? Was it when you let someone treat you like an option just to avoid being alone? Was it when you told yourself, "It's not a big deal," when in fact, it was? The problem is never the individual act. The real danger is the pattern, the slow forgetting, the daily numbing, the shrinking of your own voice until it disappears behind a smile. And here's the truth no one wants to admit. Every time you betray your conscience, your body remembers. It shows up as fatigue, as anxiety, as that hollow feeling right before bed, when the world goes quiet and you suddenly feel far from yourself. You don't need more coffee. You don't need another productivity hack. What you need is to stop crossing the line you promised yourself you'd never cross. Not for comfort, not for approval, not for love. Because if you keep abandoning your truth in exchange for peace, eventually even that peace won't feel safe. You'll always wonder, who do I have to be today just to survive? But you weren't born to survive. You were born to stand in your own gravity. To be the kind of person who walks into a room, not with noise, but with presence. The kind of presence that says, "I know who I am, and I will not cross that line. Not for you, not for anyone." This isn't about being selfish, it's about being whole. Because the world doesn't need more agreeable people. It needs more anchored people. People whose moral compass still points north, no matter how loud the storm. That's what Einstein modeled. Not perfection, but conviction. And in a time where everyone's shouting and performing and trying to be seen, stillness has become the new rebellion. Conscience has become a revolutionary act. So before you keep running, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what line am I still crossing that's slowly erasing me? And more importantly, what would happen if I stopped? Let me tell you a story. It's not dramatic. There are no heroes, no villains, just a woman, like so many others, who forgot where her boundaries were. Until one day, she remembered. Her name was Clara. Clara wasn't reckless, or naive, or lost. She was competent, reliable. The one people turned to when things needed to get done. At work, in the family, everywhere. From the outside, her life looked steady. She had a partner, a job, a circle of friends, a structured routine. Everything was fine. But Clara had a secret, and it wasn't something she hid from others. It was something she hid from herself. Every time her partner made her feel small with a subtle joke in public, she smiled. Every time her manager dismissed her idea and then used it a week later as his own, she congratulated him. Every time her mother criticized her choices under the disguise of concern, she nodded and said, "I know." And every night, she went to bed feeling like a piece of her had gone missing. No one noticed. Not even Clara. Not at first. Because these weren't explosions. They were paper cuts, small, frequent, invisible from the outside, but deep enough to bleed a soul dry. It wasn't until one ordinary Tuesday morning that something changed. Clara was brushing her teeth, already late for work, already anxious about the emails waiting for her. And for a split second, she looked at herself in the mirror. Not the quick glance, a real look. She stared into her own eyes and didn't recognize who was staring back. She didn't look tired. She looked erased, and it hit her. Not all at once, but in a slow, undeniable wave. I've been living someone else's version of me. Smiling when I wanted to scream. Saying yes when my whole body was begging for no. That day, Clara didn't go to work. She sat down at her kitchen table and started writing. Not a resignation letter, not a confrontation text, just a simple list. She titled it, "What I No Longer Betray." And under it, she wrote truths that had no room in her life until now. I no longer pretend something didn't hurt just because I'm afraid of making it worse. I no longer accept being someone's emotional punching bag in the name of peace. I no longer cross my own limits just to avoid losing someone who already doesn't see me. It wasn't magic. Her life didn't transform in 24 hours. But something irreversible had begun. She started saying things out loud. Not in anger, but with calm fire. The first time she said, "Actually, I'm not okay with that." Her voice shook, but it was real. And for the first time in years, so was she. Her partner? He resisted at first. Of course he did. People don't like when you stop playing the role they've written for you. But Clara no longer played roles. She told the truth. Even when it made things harder. Even when it made people uncomfortable. Even when it meant losing what once felt like home. Because she understood something Einstein knew deeply. You can't live in peace if the cost is self-abandonment. The world applauded Clara when she was agreeable, but it began to respect her. When she became real, and she wasn't angry, she wasn't loud, she didn't need to be, because presence doesn't scream. It simply refuses to disappear. That was her revolution, not fighting back, but coming back to herself. Maybe you've been living like Clara. Maybe your betrayals aren't visible to anyone but you. Maybe you've convinced yourself that being quiet is the mature thing, the loving thing, the right thing. But what if it's not? What if every time you betray yourself in the name of harmony, you're actually creating a war inside? What if the path back to peace isn't through surrender, but through remembering? Remembering who you were before the compromises. Remembering what it felt like to stand in your truth. Remembering the line you promised yourself you'd never cross. And drawing it again, this time with ink that doesn't wash off. That's what Clara did, not all at once, but one truth at a time, and that changed everything. Let's step back for a moment. You might be thinking, okay, I get the emotional side. Betraying yourself feels bad. But is that really such a big deal? Yes, it is. And not just spiritually, biologically. Your conscience isn't just some vague moral compass. It's wired into your nervous system, into your memory, into the way your brain keeps you alive. The moment you go against it, your body knows. Even when your mind tries to rationalize, minimize, or explain it away, your body doesn't lie. Let's look at the science. When you act against your inner truth, even in small ways, your brain enters a state called cognitive dissonance. It's a fancy term for one brutal feeling. I'm living a lie, and I know it. You might not say it out loud, but your subconscious feels it. That quiet inner tug, like something is off, out of place, misaligned. And to fix that discomfort, your brain does one of two things. Either you change your behavior, or you change your identity. Most people choose the second. They start telling themselves stories. Maybe I overreacted. It's not that serious. I should just be more grateful. Other people have it worse. And slowly, over time, the dissonance fades. Not because you healed, but because you've gone numb. But the body remembers. That dissonance shows up in stress hormones flooding your system, in tension headaches, in gut issues, in fatigue that no amount of sleep fixes. Your sympathetic nervous system, the one designed for fight or flight, stays on, always scanning, always alert, because it knows you're not safe, even when nothing around you looks dangerous. Why? Because you're unsafe to yourself. You've crossed the line so many times, your system no longer trusts you. Think about that for a second. What would it be like to live in a body that doesn't trust your own choices? It's exhausting. It's confusing. It's the silent reason so many people feel anxious for no reason, depressed without explanation, empty even when life looks full. The disconnection from your conscience is not abstract. It's chemical, it's neurological, it's physical. But here's the beauty. Just as your body remembers betrayal, it also remembers truth. When you begin to honor your conscience, even in small, quiet acts, something shifts. Your nervous system recalibrates. Your breath deepens. Your thoughts slow down. Your posture changes. You stand different. You speak different. You become trustworthy to yourself again. And that's not just healing, that's freedom. Einstein didn't use words like nervous system or somatic memory, but he understood this deeply. That truth isn't just a moral issue, it's a matter of alignment with reality. He believed the universe had laws, not just physical, but ethical. And when you live in contradiction to those laws, you suffer, not as punishment, but as feedback. Pain becomes the body's way of saying, you're not where you belong. So the next time you feel off, ask yourself, where have I gone silent when I should have spoken? What part of me am I betraying just to keep the peace? What does my body know that my mind is trying to ignore? Because your body is always telling the truth. And when you finally listen, everything begins to change. Now that you've seen the cost of abandoning your conscience, the question becomes, how do you come back? Not just in theory, in practice. In the real world, where habits are strong, people expect you to stay the same, and silence feels safer than truth. Let me offer you something simple, not easy, but simple. A 7-day practice. No pressure, no performance. Just one promise. For the next 7 days, you will stop betraying yourself. And it begins with something I call the inner line. Here's how it works. Every morning, before you touch your phone, before you check the world, you sit down in silence. 1 minute, 5 minutes, however long you can give. And you ask yourself a single question. What line must I not cross today, no matter what? That's it. Maybe that line is staying silent when someone talks down to you. Maybe that line is laughing at a joke that insults your dignity. Maybe that line is saying yes out of guilt. Maybe it's answering a message that makes your chest tighten. Maybe it's pushing through your exhaustion again, pretending you're fine. Your conscience will know. Your body will whisper the answer. You don't have to search for it. Just listen. Once you have it, write it down. not on your phone. With your hand, in a notebook, on paper. Write, "Today, I do not cross this line." That small act of listening and naming is already rebellion. It means you're paying attention again. It means you've stopped abandoning yourself. By default, then go live your day. Not perfectly, not fearlessly, just with awareness. And here's the key. When the moment comes, and it will, when you're tempted to cross that line, pause, breathe, and remember, the discomfort of saying no is temporary, but the cost of saying yes, when your soul means no, lingers. Even if no one sees you, even if no one thanks you. That act of staying loyal to yourself, quietly, with no spotlight, is the beginning of healing. And at the end of the day, before sleep, take 1 minute. Return to your notebook and write one sentence. Did I stay true today? No judgment, just truth. Some days you will, some days you won't. But every time you ask, you strengthen something sacred inside you. Because truth isn't a destination. It's a daily relationship. And here's the deeper reason this practice matters. The world has taught you that growth means doing more, becoming more, achieving more. But the truth is, real growth often begins in unlearning, in doing less of what hurts you, in becoming less of who you're not, in saying, "No, this stops here." Each time you stay true to your line, even if it's invisible to others, you reclaim a piece of yourself. And piece by piece, you begin to rebuild the trust that was lost when you kept betraying your truth in the name of being good, polite, acceptable. That trust becomes your strength, your clarity, your quiet fire. You don't need to burn bridges. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to stand with yourself. 7 days. 7 truths. 7 chances to say to your nervous system, your soul, your conscience, "I hear you. I see you. I won't leave you behind anymore. Let the world be loud. Let them misunderstand you. Let the discomfort come. You'll survive it. What you won't survive is abandoning yourself one more time." So start now. Ask yourself, what is the line I will not cross today? And hold it like a flame. Even if your hands shake, that is how you return. So, here we are. After everything we talked about, Einstein, the mind, the quiet betrayals, the cost of saying yes when your soul is screaming no, there's really just one thing I want you to take away from this. Your conscience matters. Not because it makes you perfect, but because it's the part of you that always knows what's real, and when you stop listening to it, even just a little, something inside you starts to fade. Maybe that's what you've been feeling lately. That low, dull ache. Like something's missing, but you can't quite name it. Maybe now you know what it is. It's you. It's the real you, the one you used to be, the one who never needed to shrink, perform, or explain. And I just want to say this, simply and from the heart. It's not too late to come back to yourself. You don't have to make some grand announcement. You don't have to fix everything today. You just have to stop crossing that one line, the one your body keeps pointing to, the one your soul remembers, even if your mind forgot. And if you've watched this far, maybe it's because deep down, you're ready. So here's my question for you, and I'd love for you to answer in the comments, if it feels right. What's one thing you will no longer betray in yourself? And if this video stirred something in you, even quietly, share it with someone who might need this reminder too. Someone who's been strong for too long. Someone who forgot that being true is more important than being nice. Because when we remember who we are, we give other people permission to remember too. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one. But for now, take a deep breath and take your truth with you. You've earned it.